Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm super duper excited to be here, and we're going to be talking about, I think, I'm doing air quotes, right? Borrowing brains. Borrowing brains. What do you mean by that, KK? Well, I'm going to tell you. Buckle up for safety. So a lot of times my shows come from multiple different places. And when I find or discover that an idea or a thought is showing up in multiple places in my life, it's usually a good sign for me to move ahead and open my big mouth about it or talk about it. So today I'm going to talk about this idea of borrowing brains. And of course, I'll explain more of what I mean by that. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories or maybe 3 in the positive realm of like, but when borrowing brains is like awesome. And then I'm going to do a little caveat to the story here and why sometimes that one, when we get to it, can get a little funky and weird. Okay. So here's the thing. So a lot of you know, well, first of all, let me say this. If you're new to the show, because I never know who's listening and when, if you're new to the show, hi. So nice to meet you. My name is Karen Kenney. A lot of people call me KK or K or K2 or K squared or special K, some version of that. It's fine. You can call me Karen. Most of my friends don't, but whatever, right? Whatever. I like nicknames. And I do a lot of things, right? But so I'm known as I obviously have a podcast. Here we are. But I'm also a spiritual mentor. I'm a life coach. I'm an integrative hypnotist. I've been a yoga teacher for a wicked long time. I've done Thai yoga, massage, Reiki, gateless writing instructor, and on and on and on. So I have certifications in a bunch of different things. And I bring all of those things, the somatics and the brain science and the subconscious reprogramming and the spiritual mentoring, like all together. So bringing together the sacred and the science is kind of what I do to help people in a variety of ways. And so, for example, right, I'll be teaching a yoga workshop this upcoming weekend. And then I have like an in-person thing called The Experience that people can come and experience at my space in Concord, New Hampshire. I'm leading a transformational retreat in April, which I'll tell you guys more about at the end. And I do one-to-one work, right? So there's a lot of different ways to work with me and to kind of dive into all those things. So that's just kind of a super duper fast, quick, like wrap up of who I am. So just thank you for being here. Thanks for listening to the show. And I hope you enjoy this sucker. I never, ever want to waste anybody's time, including my own. Okay, so here's the deal. Oh, and I also have a membership. That's where I was going with that whole thing. That was the point I wanted to make. So I have a membership, a spiritual membership and community called The Nest. Okay, so I basically have The Nest, which is a group program, and then I have The Quest, which is working with me one-to-one. But in The Nest, we have monthly calls. And recently on one of the calls, I was talking to one of the members. They had brought up a question, or we were, shooting the shit, going back and forth, getting a little coaching and mentoring. And I said, look, you're here right now. And the beauty of these calls, you guys, this is what I'm saying. So just imagine we're on a Zoom call, all the Brady Bunch squares, right? All the faces there. And I'm saying to this one person, but really I'm saying it to everybody, including myself. But this is what I'm saying. I said, look, one of the greatest things about these calls is that you guys get to show up and hear what other people are saying and get mentoring and coaching from me. And you get to borrow my brain for 90 minutes. And they were all like, what? And I'm like, think about it. It's one of the great things about having a mentor or a coach is that you get to borrow their brain. And what I mean by that is you might be showing up. So Einstein had the quote, supposedly, that said, you cannot solve a problem with the same level of mind, the same level of consciousness and thinking that created, this is my version of it. He didn't say damn, right? That created the damn problem in the first place. Meaning you're not usually going to find the solution at the same level of thinking where the problem was originally created. So when people are, going to a coach or a mentor or whatever and seeking support, guidance, insight, help, whatever, and getting the fuck out of their own way, right? One of the great things is to call in another POV, another point of view. And so when you enlist the help of somebody who has already gone before you, or somebody who has a lot of experience in X, Y, and Z, whatever that thing might be, right? You're essentially getting to borrow their brain and see how they might approach said problem, how they might look at a particular thing. It's kind of like having, like I said, this kaleidoscope point of view where you can just turn it a little bit and it's like, hey, have you thought about it like this? Have you considered this? Have you whatever, looked at it from this point of view? And it's a very powerful thing because so often we get locked into our own habits, our own patterns, our own identities, our own ways of doing things. And we don't consider that, as I often jokingly say to clients, your best thinking, or potential clients, right? When I'm on the phone with them and we're having a call to see if it feels like it would be a good fit to work together for a few months or more, right? I often say, hey, look, your best thinking is what got you where you are right now. Like your best thinking got you here. So wouldn't it perhaps be beneficial or helpful to be able to borrow somebody else's brain for a little while, to borrow their point of view, to borrow their skill set? And I know that not all skill sets are transferable, right? Of course. But what we can do is share tools, and we can share practices, and we can share pattern interrupts, and we can share all kinds of spiritual principles. Well, in my line of work, spiritual principles and practicals and practices and tools and stuff like that, that is going to help the other person help themselves. Because that's the thing. And there's a line that my teacher, my meditation teacher, Ashwaran, says that I love. And he says, light your torch from your teacher's fire. I did a whole podcast episode about this. Light your torch from your teacher's fire. And it's another way of saying, like, when we come together to work, and whether it's in the Nest, which is an ongoing membership, or in the Quest, which is one-to-one, it's like for that period of time, you're getting access to my brain. You're getting access to me. You're getting access to how I look at things and think about things and talk about things. And you could apply this to, to other coaches and sports coaches and strategists and marketing and business, whatever. I'm just saying, I'm using me as the only example because that's the only thing I can talk about with any experience or authority, right? And it's a very, very, very powerful thing because we might find that our brains, our brains operate differently. I say samesies different, right? Usually we all have most of the same parts, not always, but often, right? Most of the same parts, but how we utilize them, where somebody might have strengths, you might have weaknesses, where you might have strengths, they might have weaknesses, which is one of the reasons why I also invest in learning from people who might have a particular skill set or are smarter than me, right? I always say when smarty pants people are saying smarty pants things, I'm smart enough to listen. That's what I always say. Or I could say I'm smarty pants enough to listen. So, which leads me kind of to my next point of view, my next story. So I'm currently in a training with two people who I think are fantastic and fantastically smart. Like they're brilliant in their own way. And so I've been certified in hypnosis for a while now. And then at the end of last year, I did my second certification, but it was in hypnosis, but it was my first certification in integrative hypnosis with Melissa Tias, who is just genius. And if you haven't listened to that podcast episode, go check it out because I had her on my show, my teacher, my mentor. And she's paired up with somebody named Simone Soul, and Simone is a genius, like marketer and business person. Okay. And Simone was one of Melissa's students, like way back in the day. So I'm already certified through Melissa as an integrative hypnotist, right? That's her stuff. But once I found out these two were pairing up, I made a conscious decision to do a third training. So now I'm training with them and certified life coach, right? But also getting submerged again in more neuroscience and NLP and subconscious reprogramming and practical brain science, right? Coaching the unconscious mind, which is so powerful. And I'll be doing a whole podcast episode about that. But one of the reasons why I wanted to go study with them, twofold. Number one, Melissa said something on one of the calls that I was like, yes, I was so fucking excited. And what she was saying is, you guys, well, let me back up for a second. Remember when I did the podcast episode, and some of you will be like, no, but I did a podcast episode where I was talking about this great quote where I think I have it right here in my drawer. Let's see if I have it. Yeah, I do. And it says, a menta is someone whose hindsight can become your foresight. A menta is someone whose hindsight can become your foresight, meaning they've already been there, done that, learned some shit, figured some stuff out, applied it, has some firsthand experience, now have their own wisdom that they've embodied and that they can now come back and pass on. Okay. That's the power of when you coach or mentor with somebody. And Melissa was talking about on one of the trainings, because some people were like, holy shit, we are learning so much about how the brain works. We're learning so much about neuroscience. We're learning so much about coaching. How, like, literally the program is called the best fucking coaching course. And I'm not going to lie, it really is. It's fantastic. I'm having such a blast. And Melissa was basically saying on one of the calls, because people were like feeling like some people were getting a little overwhelmed. They're like, this is like so much information. How am I going to remember to do this in all of my coaching sessions or whatever? And Melissa said, hold up. What I want you to realize is, like, I went first. And I have spent, like, you are getting 25 years worth of expertise and knowledge and wisdom. And when she said that, it just stopped me in my track. And I was like, yes, right now I am borrowing Melissa's brain. And I was like, yeah. I was so excited, because getting access to people who have skill sets, who have tools, who have protocols and strategies and practices and things that you couldn't even dream of yet, because they've been doing it for so long. And when she said that, I was like, holy shit, I get to borrow her brain. I get to see how her curiosity leads her. The books that she's read and has now become intimate with, moving past just the information, like she's actually intimate with it because she's played with it and she's practiced it and she's fucked it up and she's figured it out and she's making it up, and all of it, the creativity, the brilliance. I now get to kind of swim in that. I'm doing a little backstroke for those of you who aren't watching. a little forward crawl in the pool, right? Of swimming in Melissa Tia's brain. Are you kidding me? All day long, sign me up. No arm floaties. I'm going all in, deep end. You know what I'm talking about? And the bonus is I also get to borrow Simone's brain. And I was like, this is a no-brainer, borrowing Simone Soul's brain for a little while. And let me say it like this. One of the things that I've realized of when I trust myself and my inner teacher, my intuition, my gut instincts, my Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, right? Divine guidance, spiritual team on the job. If you listen to last week's episode, you know how I feel about that. It was the episode, I think, called Universal Signs, right? I fully trust that. And there are some things, though, that I just do not have unconscious competence in. So I want to do a whole podcast about this. So for me, there's certain skill sets, there's certain practices, there's certain tools or whatever that I don't even have to think about, right? I'm like, I can just go and do this thing and I don't have to stress about it or worry about it. Like, it's in there. I know how to do this thing, right? Marketing in particular is not naturally one of them for me. Thinking about marketing in a particular way. And one of the things that I love about Simone's brain is that she thinks about things from a totally, for me, it's, how do I want to say this? It's not that it's always necessarily new information, but she says it in a way that my brain would not have thought of to put it in that particular way. So sometimes she'll say something and I'll just stop and go, holy shit. And it's like I can feel the neural networks in my brain like lighting up. That's what it feels like. It's just like, ooh, right? It's like if Tinkerbell just did it like with her little wand in my brain. That's how it feels. So sometimes getting to borrow somebody else's brain, especially when that brain has unconscious competence, meaning it's just easy peasy for them, it comes natural to them. When you get to see that shit in action, it is a game changer. And this is why paying other people, investing in yourself through investing in mentoring and coaching programs is, to me, it's just a no-brainer to pay to borrow other people's brains sometimes. You know, I have one of the people on my, people talk about, let's talk about this for a second, segue. KK's taking a slight detour here. Now, you see a lot of entrepreneurs talking about, quote unquote, I'm doing little air quotes, scaling their business and how they just want to grow that motherfucker like big, and they want to have a big team and they want to do all, and I'm like, I have no interest in any of that. Like having all these other people that I'm responsible for in that way, meaning like paying for their livelihood and like all that stuff, employees, like not interesting to me. God bless the people that want to do it and want to employ others. That's fantastic. Not where my strength lies, right? Or where my, call it where I feel like my individual curriculum has asked me to go. But I do have a few people who help me out. And one of them is Meg, who is what I call it, you could call her a lot of things, but I'll just say, to simplify it for the listeners, my tech girl. Okay, so she's the one when I have an idea and I say, hey, can we put this on my website? Can we put this on my back end? Can we create an automated something? Can we do this? She's the one that handles the tech for me, so I can get out of my own way. So I supply the words, the copy, the whatever, the idea, and then she helps me bring it to life. Now, I hire her so I can use her brain, so I can borrow her brain, because her brain works in a very particular way that my brain does not. I see certain tech things, and look, I'm not a total idiot. I can get around, right? I've been using Apple products since 1996. I think I've been around the block. I probably know enough to be dangerous, but there's just some shit that I'm like, yeah, that whole language of coding or that whole language of tech speak, and here's the thing, here's what's so fascinating. When you see those like-minded brains hive and get together and they start talking, and you can clearly see that you know how like they say sometimes twins will have a private language or a secret language that only they understand? That's how it feels to me sometimes, listening to tech people do their tech speak, their tech talk. Because I'm always like, I have no idea what you two are fucking talking about right now, but clearly you are excited and you're getting lit up by this whole conversation because you two actually know what the fuck the other one is saying. Where I just kind of stand out on the outside like a weird little kid with their face pressed up against the glass going, I don't understand. I don't understand. So thank goodness, thank goshness that other people have brains and strengths and smarty pantsness and brilliance and talents and skill sets in areas that I don't, so that I can say, hey, here's some money. Can I borrow your brain? Can you help me bring my vision from my brain to life? Because I kind of need to borrow your brain. Which leads me to the thing. A lot of times you go into business as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, as a solo employee, whatever. And trust me, there have been so many years in my business entrepreneurial life, because I've been doing this for over 20 years, where I did try to figure it all out on my own. And just enough so, can you guys hear Toby Pajamas demanding to be picked up right now? So just enough so that like I could get things done, but it wasn't a true representation of my quality of work, because I couldn't, how do I say this? I didn't have the tech skill to properly represent myself. Oh, Toby, buddy. Toby Pajamas is now a guest on the show. You want to say something for the people? So I wasn't able to properly like represent myself because I didn't have the skill set. So sometimes in business, you might think, oh, I'm only one person. I have to figure it all out. There are just times when it pays. And sometimes there's an old saying that says, you got to spend money to make money. And I got to tell you, for me, it has been true. It has been true. I've had to invest in whether that's a coach or a mentor or a tech person or a podcast team or whatever the thing is, to help me get my vision out into the world, because I have the creativity and the vision in spades. He's headbutting my mic right now. But what I don't always have is the know-how, right? My brain doesn't work that way. So I pay to borrow other people's brains. I think I've made my point. So what I want, if you guys haven't watched it, you should just go watch this right now, because he's literally just dragging his tail across my face while I'm trying to talk. Okay. And we're back. All right. So here's the last point I wanted to make when it's not so great. So the two stories I said at the top of the hour, I was going to tell two stories in favor of borrowing brains, and then one where it gets a little weird or wonky. Okay, so I remember being on some sort of a call, and one of the participants or people who was also on the call as an attendee, not one of the speakers, asked a question about, well, how do you find people who can help you or whatever, da 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 da. And one of the people on the panel said, oh, well, just see if you can find people who do similar work than you, who have been in the business for a longer time than you, who are successful, and then reach out to them and then just ask them like if they can help you. And the person was like, really? You can just reach out to them? And they're like, oh, yeah, most people love to help. Most people love to mentor and give advice, and they take it as a compliment. And I literally just wanted to blow up the chat box. I was like, whoa, 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 pump the brakes. Because what they were really talking about was this idea of when, and if you're an entrepreneur who's been around the block for a little bit, if you're somebody who's been in business for a while, inevitably you get some sort of a DM or a message or an email or something from Contact Me or a comment on your YouTube or your Instagram or wherever you tend to show up socially. And somebody will start bombarding you with questions, asking you basically to solve their problem or to give them free advice or to try and help them to do X, Y, and Z. Or you get this question, which this is not necessarily a good double amen hand. It's double amen hands if you know what the fuck I'm talking about. When somebody reaches out to you and they just basically lead with their own need, and they say something like, I'd love to get together over coffee to pick your brain. Or I'd love to hop on a quick call to, pick your brain, or to quote unquote chat or whatever. So now look, I want to be very clear. What I'm about to say, not everybody might agree with. Some people might think I'm even being a little stingy or mean. But I want to preface what I'm about to say with this. I put out a lot of free content. Okay. Hello, I'm on episode, whatever this is, 206 of my podcast. This is 206 episodes. We're talking hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of free content designed to help people, right? To try and help people to navigate things, to maybe get out of their way, to learn some stuff, to help themselves, to find resources and books and other incredible teachers, et cetera, to get to know me in case they ever want to hire me, right? This podcast does a lot of heavy lifting, but mostly it's because I wanted to have a free resource for people who maybe are just kind of either diving into the spiritual approach to problem solving, or they're wanting to learn about things because I wasn't doing hypnosis and stuff like that back when I first started this podcast, right? But this has always been a gift from my hat to your hats. This has always been something that I wanted to do to support people. Just like when I had a TV show that I did for 13 years for free for people, it was the yoga show with Karen. And I wanted to do it because I had heard from people over the years, like when I started teaching yoga and I had a studio and I was teaching in various places, and every once in a while, somebody would be like, oh my God, I wish my mom could do this, but she's housebound, or I wish my cousin could do this, but they suffer from depression, or I wish so-and-so, but they don't have a car, or like 1,000 reasons why people needed yoga, but couldn't get to a class. And I thought, I know, I'll bring it to them. And so my TV show went into over like 15,000 homes and institutions and businesses and stuff like that in the Concord area. It was amazing. And so I felt really good to do a free resource. And once that show ended, then I was like, how can I do it? And so hence here we are, the podcast. The reason why I'm doing that whole preamble is to kind of back up what I'm about to say, so you don't think I'm a total dick, right? So first of all, that person saying, oh, most business people or whatever love to mentor and just help out for free. It feels really good. And I was like, okay, a lot of us are too fucking busy, right? Too busy running our businesses and helping the clients and the people who have actually paid to work with us and have invested in themselves and doing retreats and doing podcasts and doing all these things. So no, we don't actually have a lot of extra time to be trying to answer like things in the chat box and, oh, let me just go to coffee with a total stranger. Oh yeah, just come in and like just offer nothing, but just try and pick my brain for free. And I had a friend and we were laughing about this one day, and we both decided, we're like, oh, so when people say to us, because there's an art form, first of all, I'll come back to this point in a second. There's an art form to asking. P.S. by the way, okay? if you're gonna do that, do it consciously, do it intentionally, and I'm gonna give you a few tips, okay? But so a lot of times, most people, they don't have time to just meet you for coffee. Especially, I laugh so high because if you actually know me and know who I am and have listened to me, you know that I don't drink coffee. I don't do caffeine. So no, I don't want to go for coffee or even tea. I don't even really like tea that much. But I try to put out a lot of free stuff so that people, can get access. Okay, but here's my point. When you reach out to somebody who's really busy and you say, hey, can I just pick your brain? There's always that moment I shouldn't say always, there's often that moment. And how do I know? Because this has been a dilemma question for entrepreneurs and business leaders for a really long time. Where as a spiritual mentor, I've been asked this question because people say, I feel like shit. Like I feel like I'm not being kind or compassionate or generous enough, to give back when people reach out to me. And I was like, but wait, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe a total stranger like your time and time on your calendar, because time is the one resource like that we can't here in the illusion, right? Here in the world, in the way that time is structured here in this world. Although I think space and time is really a construct, but we do. You can see back there, I'm pointing to that little timer, right? We do think of calendars as time as being real here. So, there's only so many hours in a day, and we can't always get those back. So when you want to try and borrow somebody's brain without putting something on the table first, and this leads to the art form. If you want somebody to give you access to their time, to their brain, to their wisdom, to their knowledge, to their experience, and you're not offering anything first, if you just dive into their DM and say, hey, how do I solve this problem? Or, hey, how do I do this? Or, hey, I want to pick your brain. You know what I often say to the screen when I read something like that? And not just my own. When I see people leaving comments like that on my friends' posts, I'll say, I bet you do. I bet you do want to go get fucking coffee and pick their brain, because they're brilliant. Because they put in the years and the time and the experience, and they've fallen down and they've gotten up and they fucked up and they fixed it and they figured it out and they went through the ringer to get where they are with all this success. Now, I want to be wicked clear. I'm not telling anybody to not be generous, to not do it. If you have the time and you want to do it, great. But one of the other kind responses can be, sure, you can pick my brain. Here's a link for the payment. here's a payment link, which might lead then, once you pay, to a calendar link. But if you're going to ask somebody for something, somebody once said in the art of negotiation, you reach out first and you say, hey, and it might sound transactional. I know nobody's probably getting a warm fuzzy from what I'm saying right now, but I'm trying to help you actually get that need met if that's something you want to do. A lot of times, if you can lead with something, right, that makes some sort of a connection or whatever. But nowadays, a lot of people seem to feel entitled to a lot of things just because of social media, and that there's so much availability, meaning you have so much access to people now. People have so much access to each other. So they think that you can just slide into a DM, or they can pitch something or ask for something or whatever, as if the person with the account is beholden, like they owe you something to answer. And sometimes, here's the God's honest truth, there just isn't enough time in the day to do it. It's not because that person is selfish or mean, or they don't care about their audience or their community or their followers or whatever, their fans, their friends, or whoever. It's because that there's just not enough bandwidth. And there's a reason why they have offers and services and retreats and programs, because those are the people who are going to get their time and attention, is the people who are who are willing to make an investment in borrowing that brain. So I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down, and you see, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to make anybody who's ever done that feel ashamed. Guarantee we have all done it at some point, not being aware. We saw something, we got excited, we got lit up. People used to write to me all the time and say, hey, I'd love to be a yoga teacher. Can you recommend this? Hey, I'm going vegan. Can you help me transition to vegan? Hey, I've got a cousin who's going through a thing. People reach out to me all the time. And when I have time, I do my best to respond in a really thoughtful and mindful way. And some of you listening to this, you might be one of those people where I'll just drop you a quick IG voice message, or I'll say something back, or I'll direct you towards a podcast or a resource, right? I really do my best. But if you're going to take somebody, like I said, who's been in the business of whatever for a wicked long time, and just expect them to drop everything to answer your email or to do whatever, no, there's a payment link for that, right? There's a way to work with them. And be resourceful and take a look around, because I guarantee you that if they've been in business long enough, one of the ways they've stayed in business is that people like them and follow them and know them and trust them, because they are offering free resources all the time. And whether that's a podcast or a show or an email list, that's another thing. Get on somebody's email list. There's 1,000 different ways where you can support them, and in turn, you also benefit from it. Because you can borrow people's brains by consuming their content, or reading their stories, or reading their books, or watching their Facebook lives, or listening to their podcast, or whatever. So many of us are doing our best to share and help people transform way before they ever even invest or give us any money. Because those of us who feel called to help and to serve, that's why we're doing it. But we also have mortgages, and we also have furry kids or human puppies, as my friend says. She's like, you have furry kids, I have a human puppy, right? We have them to pay for. And then there's our own levels of education and everything else. So I hope you're seeing where I'm coming from with this. That's the one place where picking your brain can get a little weird. Is when you want to borrow somebody's brain, but you're not willing to put forth anything. You're just asking. And if those relationships, there's givers and there's takers. There's givers and there's takers. And sometimes you got to give a little bit to take a little bit. You know what I'm saying? A little sip on both sides. A little sip, as Linda Ty says. So you guys, if you've been, what's the word? If you've been rewarded the benefit, or maybe you've paid and invested in the benefit of borrowing somebody else's brain, then you know what I'm talking about. It can be an incredible experience. And I know for myself, it's one of the smartest things I've ever done is being able to recognize somebody, right? I'm like, I don't want to be the smartest one in the room. That gets me nowhere. I like to be around other people who are also wicked curious, who are also trying to grow their brain and expand their consciousness and expand their heart and become more loving and more wise, right? Like I love being around the hashtag helpers. I love it. I love being around people who are maybe a little bit older than me or the same age or like even younger than me, right? Because not younger people have skill sets also. That's the other thing too. We can borrow brains from different generations who have something new or unique or a different way of saying something that just like makes us go, holy shit. You have no idea how many times a day I say things like, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought of that. My brain doesn't work in that way. That would not have been my conclusion. That would not have led me. That A would not have taken me to that D. That A would have taken me to like Z, right? Or G. So being able to enjoy the neural networks of other people, man, it's one of the best investments you can make, borrowing somebody else's brain. So I hope this was helpful in some way. I hope it made you or helped you, not made you do anything. I hope it helped you to maybe start to think about things a little bit differently, to see the value in investing in a coach or a mentor or somebody who can, a business leader or a strategist or a marketing teacher or whatever the thing is, right? Like a strength trainer. Like right now, I am also borrowing Jordan's brain, my strength and conditioning. Oh, I got my conscious muscle on. I'm representing the gear, right? I'm borrowing Jordan's brain because I don't have a bodybuilding brain. I know enough to be dangerous, as I always say, right? I used to be a personal trainer, but I don't know how to get a body in shape the way that Jordan does with macros and vegan, the whole vegan approach to doing it also, right? With the macros and the nutrition and, you need to recruit these muscle fibers to do this and this workload. And we want to get in this much, blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm like, okay, dude, this is why I'm doing this, to borrow your brain, because it only benefits me in the long run. And it benefits them because you're supporting their business. It is a win. It is a win-win. It is a win-win. And it's a win-win-win. You know why it's a win-win-win, triple hat win? Because by me borrowing their brains, Melissa, Simone, Jordan, whoever, my mentors, right? My teachers who have come before me, the shoulders of the giants that I stand on, right? Is that when I take that wisdom from their brain and I incorporate it into my brain, it becomes a new thing. And then I get to share my lived experience of that information, that intimacy with that knowledge, with those tools and practices. So my clients, my students, my workshop attendees, my retreat attendees, right? The members of the nest, they're all benefiting from me borrowing another brain for a while. How cool is that? And this is how the world goes round. So you guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Before I go, though, let me tell you about my retreat. Oh my God. So you guys, I've been doing retreats at one of the most magical places ever for a really long time. It is the Mountain View Grand Resort and Spa up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. It's in Whitefield, New Hampshire. And it is surrounded, it's on like 400 acres of landscape property, and it's surrounded by beautiful mountain vistas. Like there's just mountains everywhere. It's an incredible old grand resort, and it always makes me think of, please, I don't know if I'm helping myself by saying this, but it's how my brain works. Like you think of like The Shining. Remember Jack Nicholson being in that grand old hotel? Oh my God. But there's no red rum and there's no creepy twins in the hallway. But they also have a little red barn out back, and there's alpacas, and there's bunnies, and there's llamas, and there's goats, and there's chickens. There's all kinds of cute little fuzzy animals. Oh my God. So I get my little animal fix whenever I go there as well, because it's hard for me to be away from my furry kids for that long. But anyways, you guys, and we're back. It's a 3-day retreat. It's a weekend retreat. It's Friday, April 14th to Sunday, April 16th. 3 days at the Mountain View Grand. It's called Own Your Magic. It is the Own Your Magic retreat, and it is going to be so fantastic. And it's going to be one of those retreats where it's going to help you to see yourself and appreciate yourself and love yourself in a new magical way, to really see yourself from a different POV, different point of view, and to also transform your story to your glory. And I'm bringing together all the shit that I was talking about, all the stuff I was talking about at the beginning of the show, right? It's bringing together somatics like yoga and movement and breath work. It's bringing in the neuroscience, right? How we change, how we stop anxiety in its tracks, right? How we stack and create new empowering habits and beliefs. It's going to be bringing in integrative hypnosis. There's going to be guided relaxation. I mean, I'm just telling you, you guys, there's nothing like it. It's going to be so fantastic. I'm not saying there's nothing like it on the planet, but I have not done a retreat, this kind of retreat in this particular way. And the last retreat I did was in 2019 at the Mountain View Grand. I'd done like 8 retreats there up until that point. And then COVID, the pandemic shut the world down. So I'm so jazzed to be back in person with everybody. It's already starting to kind of come together in my mind. I just know it's going to be an incredible time. People are already signing up. So here's the thing, you guys. There's only so many. I'm not trying to create false urgency. That is not my bag. This is legit facts. The hotel will only hold a block of discounted room rates for so long. So I don't want you to miss out. And I also don't want you to miss out on the early bird price. So the early bird price is $800. That sucker is going up in March, along with those discounted hotel room rates going away. So please, 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 if you want to join us, go to KarenKenney.com/retreat. My last name is spelled Kenney. So it's KarenKenney.com/retreat. And you'll find all the information there. You can see some fun pictures, read more about it. It's going to be incredible. And I absolutely can't wait. So thank you so much for being here, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly enjoyed being here with you. So remember, as I always say, because I mean it, wherever you go in the world, wherever you visit, whoever you talk to, whatever spaces and places you go into, please leave the people you meet there, the animals you might meet there, the environment itself, and leave yourself better than how you found it, better than how you first got there. May everybody just be happier that you had been there, right? That your presence was a blessing. Wherever you go, may you, in your own unique way, be a blessing. Bye.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KenneYlive. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.